Hi, welcome to Citizen Survival Plan. Welcome back if you've been here before. In today's video, I want to dispel some myths about transmitting on ham frequencies without a license. There is a lot of misinformation about this. There is a lot of actual ham radio operators that make a lot of ridiculous posts if you were to transmit on a ham radio with no license. So let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is just transmitting on a simplex frequency. You have a radio and your buddy has a radio and you're doing whatever, LARPing in the woods with your AR-15s or whatever. You and him are going back, let's say on a 2-meter band of VHF frequency, and you have no license. Well, a ham radio operator would have to be tuned in to your exact frequency and be listening. He would also have to be a sad ham or a Karen, if you will, and he would have to hear this and then report it to the FCC. The FCC, for the most part, is not sitting around your town or anywhere else listening for anybody with a $20 Baofeng transmitting on any ham frequencies. They simply really just don't care that much. Again, on ham radio, you are in an ocean of frequencies, especially between UHF and VHF shown here. There is so many. The odds of someone else even being exactly on that frequency or having a waterfall up or something listening for you on these frequencies is relatively rare. I'm a ham. I never do this. I have some of my radios tuned to listen to the repeaters in my area, and we're going to get into that in a minute too. So anyways, a ham radio operator or someone would have to actually hear you, record it, report it to the FCC, and you would most likely have to do this multiple times. He would have to make multiple complaints about you being on this frequency. So if you're just out for an afternoon and you do it and then weeks go by, you never do it again, there's really no open investigation. There's really nothing for this guy or the FCC to investigate. It happened, it's over, and he's got to prove it's happening all the time. And then, and only then, and maybe the FCC will set some recording equipment out to see if they hear anything. And let's say you are continually doing this over and over and over again. You are on this frequency, you're blasting a lot of power, and it's constant. The FCC can find out where you are through some recording equipment and locate you and what you're doing. And they are going to ask you to stop, probably via a letter in the mail. They're not really going to knock on your door or anything. They're going to find out who you are and send you a letter. If you don't stop, and that is the thing here, you have to continually do this. And if you don't stop, they can issue you a fine. So it takes a lot for you to get in trouble. You have to do it. You have to be on someone's frequency. They have to complain. They have to send it to the FCC. You have to continue doing it. They have to ask you to stop. And then if you don't stop, then you can get a violation or a fine. Another thing I'm going to talk about here is being on repeaters. And this goes for GMRS and ham. So if you don't have a license and you are jumping onto repeaters, let's say you're also jamming the repeater. There's a lot of ham and GMRS users on these repeaters. This is where they are. And this kind of goes back to if you're just on a simplex frequency, no one's really going to be there. If you're on a repeater, there will be people listening and monitoring that repeater. So you are way more likely to get at least a complaint on a repeater. Someone is going to complain. Multiple people are probably going to file a complaint against you on their repeater and messing up their fun time. So definitely don't do that. If you want to use the repeaters, get your license, whether it be GMRS. The ham's a little harder to get. That test is not impossible. It's going to take some studying, but it's probably worth doing so you can use the repeaters. Another thing I want to talk about is transmitting on digital frequencies on these ham bands, whether it be VHF or UHF. If you're using DMR, which is a mode on those frequencies, you can send data. And I text and stuff with our DMR radios behind me all the time. I have never typed my call sign into a text message that I'm sending. Another ham, again, would have to be on this frequency. They'd have to be monitoring, and they would also have to find a way to get inside of your talk group. Just because he's on the same frequency as you, if you're sending data and stuff over the airwaves, he can't really hear it. All he's going to hear is this. And that noise is going to come across. He's not going to know what it is. And a lot of people think hams are like these super technicians and stuff. Most hams would have no idea what that is. They would probably know that it's data, but they wouldn't know how to read it or listen or hear your call sign coming through or view it in a text message with your call sign. Again, if you're just on Simplex, radio-to-radio communications, just like GMRS, I don't throw my call sign out when I'm just, on channel 1 to 22. The only time I'm really using my call sign is when I'm jumping on a repeater. If you're on like FRS GMRS channel 3 and you're throwing your call sign out, like you're kind of a dork. Like people don't really do that. And it's kind of the same with ham. If I'm just talking to another ham on a single frequency and not on a repeater, I'm not using my call sign. That goes for the data too. Another thing I really want to talk about too is if you're on a ham frequency using DMR radio and you have talk groups set up, other hams are not really going to be able to hear what you're doing or what you're saying on Simplex frequencies because they're not in your talk group. They are not going to actually hear anything you're doing. So they're not going to be able to hear if you're throwing your call sign out or not. Okay, this is a little demo I want to do. This radio is inside of a talk group with color codes and time slots set. And this radio is simply on the same exact frequency, but not in a talk group, as you can see. So if you were to transmit in your talk group on that frequency, that radio is not picking up anything. Let me pull this off camera. I'm holding the PTT and I'm talking and I got nothing. So this radio, it's just going to briefly pick up what's going on. If anything, I saw a little bit come through. Yeah, it just flashes. So nothing really goes on. You can't even hear anything if you're using ham frequencies on these. Let's do it on this. 421.100. Same frequency. So let's do it to an analog radio. That's what you hear. Nothing. Nobody's going to know what's happening if they're on an analog radio. And no one's going to know what's happening if you are just on that frequency. We'll put this back into the channel mode. And that is now in the talk group. And now I can talk. And I'm back inside of that radio frequency and talk group. They're just going to hear that something is happening on that frequency. They're not going to know if it's licensed ham operators or not on those frequencies because you're inside of your talk group. He would need your information to hear you, which you don't have to give out. And that's not encryption. That is just a DMR talk group. There is ways to listen, I know, but if you're in this ocean of frequencies and you're in a talk group, the odds of someone listening to you are pretty slim. And then they also have to be a sad ham or Karen and then go ahead and report you, and in which case the FCC is probably not going to care. The FCC is more interested in fining people with money, i.e. cell phone manufacturers, people that put towers up, T-Mobile, Verizon. They want to go after those people. They want to find people who actually have money. They don't really care about the average Joe transmitting on a $20 Baofeng. They just don't. So to recap, if you're using Simplex frequencies and you're trying not to bother anybody, you're probably going to be okay, especially if you're using DMR, in my opinion. Stay off the GMRS repeaters, stay off the ham repeaters, and you're really not going to really run into a lot of issues. If you're going to get angry at me for bringing this up and showing people that it doesn't really matter, just keep in mind, I do not make any of the rules, and nor do I enforce them. This is my opinion. You can take it or leave it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.